Hi, and welcome back to this week's Parsha share on Sefer Maayan Beit Hashoeva. I'd like to share with you two comments that Rav Schwab makes on this week's Parsha of Vayeshev. Beginning of the Parsha, the Torah tells us, "V'Yisrael ahavas Yosef mikol banav, ki ben zikunim hulo, v'asalo kesones pasim." That we learn that Yaakov loved Yosef more than all of the other sons. And the reason why, says the pasuk, is because he's a ben zikunim. It was a child that was born later in Yaakov's life. We know also, of course, that Yosef reminded Yaakov of Rachel, who he loved so much, and therefore, as a result of his added love of Yosef, asalok sonas pasim, makes him this colored coat. And the colored coat, of course, becomes a flashpoint between Yosef and his brothers. It becomes a symbol of the added love and favoritism that Yaakov plays towards Yosef, and it becomes a catalyst towards the sinah, towards the hatred of the brothers towards Yosef, eventually towards the sale of Yosef and the entire descent into the exile of Egypt. The Medrash comments on this incident and teaches us a very simple lesson that we can learn from this story. Medrash Rabbah says, in the name of Reb Elazar ben Azariah, "Tzarich Adam shelo l'shanos bein mibanav she'al yedei ksones pasim she'asa Yaakov Avinu liYosef vayisneu oso." We learn from this incident that one should not play favoritism for one child of theirs over another, because if you do so, it leads to hatred and all the terrible things that ensue in our Parsha. Similarly, the Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Yud Amud Beis, has a lesson that's similar to this. Amarav Bar Machsia, Amar Chamer Bar Giora, Amarav, Le'olam al Yishana Adam Beno Bein Habanim. Never, says the Gemara, Le'olam, never should a person ever distinguish or differentiate or show favoritism for one of their children over the other, because you see what happened here. Over a small amount of favoritism that Yaakov plays to Yosef, all of the terrible things ensue. The Jewish people end up in the exile of Egypt and Avodas Parech for 210 years of terrible suffering. This is the entry point to all of that era of Jewish history. Rav Schwab notes that the way Chazal phrase this prohibition or this lesson is le'olam, very strong word. Never, says the Gemara, should a person play favoritism towards one of their children over the other. Why does the Gemara, says Rav Schwab, introduce this word le'olam? Why does it emphasize never should a person? Well, one could have the havamina, one could have the assumption, the logical assumption, that there are situations where it is called for to play favoritism for one child over the other. Maybe even this situation, as we read it in our Parsha, of Yaakov and Yosef, would have been one of those situations where it was called for. Kavanas omram le'olam, the reason why they include this word le'olam is she'af sheshibas asiyas aksonis pasimaita ki ben zikunim hulo, v'chol ma shalama mishem ve'ever masar lo, lefi shehikir bo shu chacham gadol yoser me'echav, Ubiasos kisonas hapasim asa umanhig alehem sheyachabdu letamid chacham kemoso v'akol l'shem kavod haTorah afal pichen lo yeshane adam liten lo la'ach echad yoter milishar habanim. What the Gemara is trying to teach us is you would look at this story and say to yourself, the Torah tells us, Ben Zikunim elo. He was a child born in the later years of life, and maybe it was absolutely appropriate and called for Yaakov to play favoritism towards Yosef, because as the Ben Zikunim, as the last of the children, perhaps he exhibited certain qualities. Perhaps he was the strongest leader. Perhaps he was the smartest. Perhaps because of that, Yaakov wanted to take all he learned in the Yeshiva and Shem Ve'ever, all the values that he instilled in his family, all the values that he held dear, and pass them on specifically to Yosef. He literally wanted to give him the mantle of family leadership, symbolized by the Ksonis Pasim. And maybe he had good reason for that. He knew Yosef would be the best at taking the values that he felt were important and carrying them on to the future generations of the family. He would be the best child to show leadership qualities, as we do see eventually is true. Yosef is the manhik, he is the mashpir, he's the leader of the family in Egypt and leader of the family going forward. He takes over some of the qualities of the bechor, of the firstborn child who was supposed to lead the family into its future. And so Yaakov saw a glimmer of that. That's what's noted, says Rav Schwab, in the words ki ben zikunim hulo. He saw some quality in him that he didn't see in the other children, and because of that he played favoritism. Yeah, for good reason. I would have said it perhaps a different way. Ben Zakunim means, he's the child that's on its own. He wasn't born with the rest of the children. He was born in older age. He's already a loner. He's already separate. He's already on his own. Maybe Ki Ben Zakunim Allah asas lo ksonas pasim. He makes him a special code, not in order to show favoritism and elevate him way above the brothers, but rather to take him from his lowly position all on his own and give him a little chashivos, give him a little importance, to raise him up to the level to be an equal with the brothers. Whether you say it my way or you say it Rav Schwab's way, you could read this story and say, Ben Zakunim lo, asalok sonas pasim. Yaakov had good reason to show favoritism in this case. And yet, what the Gemara is telling us is, Afa pichen lo yishane litein lo le'ach echad yom mitor milishar habanim. We learn from this story that even in situations where it's called for, and it's logical, and it's quote-unquote appropriate, still le'olam al yeshana. You should never play favoritism, because even when it's called for, it can have catastrophic consequences. I don't think what the Gemara is saying is that you could never show favoritism. It's that in this grand scheme of things, you should try to be equal between your children. You may see one quality in one of them that causes you to give them more leadership qualities. You may see quality in another one which will cause you to buy them more gifts. You may see a quality in another one of them that will cause you to invest more time in their studies compared to the others. You see different qualities in different children, and it's okay to invest differently in them as long as in the grand scheme of things you seem to be having a level playing field. What you see here with Yaakov is perhaps that he put a lot of emphasis on Yosef in a way that he didn't on the other children, elevating him to a status that was far beyond the rest. And the Gemara is pointing to the fact that even though that might have been logical, and even though that might have been appropriate, it had catastrophic consequences, and we have to learn to be careful in that regard to not do the same. A second comment that I wanted to share with you of Rav Schwab on the Parsha has to do with the brothers' travel to Shechem. The pasuk says, "Vayelchu echav liros et son avihem b'Shechem," that the brothers go to shepherd their father's flocks in Shechem. If you look at the Sefer Torah over the word ace son avihem, there's two dots over the ace. You have these Masoretic notes over words in the Torah. It's meant to teach us that there's something else going on behind the scenes. And so Chazal venture many different interpretations as to what's going on behind the scenes of this pasuk. So Rashi quotes from Beishis Rabbah, which says, Nakud al eis, lomar shelo halchu ela liros et atzman. The dots are trying to tell us, says Beishis Rabbah, that it's not Vayelchu echav liros es son avihem. They weren't really going for the altruistic, sincere purpose of shepherding their father's flocks, but they were really going for their own purposes, their own selfish purposes, liros es atzman. Not liros es son avihem, but liros es atzman, to shepherd themselves. What does it mean by shepherding themselves? HaKavana pshuta hi shiratu shirak heim ba'atzmam yiro es atzmam. They were going to Shechem, yes, perhaps to shepherd their father's flocks, but the true intention of going was to get out from under the watch of Yosef, to shepherd themselves, to be their own leaders, to be their own watchmen. They didn't want to be under the watchful eye of Yosef as dispatched by Yaakov, and therefore they go to Shechem. That's one interpretation of the dots over the ace. But Rav Schwab brings another interpretation from the Avos de Rabbi Nassan. Avos de Rabbi Nassan, Nakud al eis melamed shelo liros hatzon halchu ela lechol velishtos. The dots above the ace were telling us that they went to, of course, shepherd their father's flocks in Shechem, but the true intention of why they went was to eat and to drink, to throw a big party. So Rav Schwab says, what is this big party about? What exactly is the intention of Avos de Rabbi Nassan in reading this into the pasuk? Habiur bazeh. The explanation of this is as follows: Shebios kina vesina ben shifteka hareyesh bazeh aso nora lechlal Yisrael. When there's jealousy and hatred amongst the tribes of God, the tribes of the Jewish people, amongst the factions of the Jewish people, it is an ason nora lechlal Yisrael. It is a terrible disaster and tragedy for the Jewish people. V'rak bishchon b'nei kelchai sheves achim gam yachad be'achdus az yesh tikva la'asido shel am Hashem. Only when there is unity amongst the tribes, unity among the Jewish people. Only when we can truly proclaim Shevas Achim Gam Yachad, that all of the brothers sit together in achva and love and peace and brotherhood, in unity, then there's hope for the future of God's nation, for the future of the Jewish people. Without that unity, there is no hope in the future. V'hinei, and here's what happened. Kol zman shehayu nimtzaim etzel Yaakov avihem gavra beineim apirud machmas sinasam es Yosef. All the time that they were living in Yaakov's house, they were overcome by disunity. And the source of all of that disunity, of all of that turmoil and all of that fighting was the hatred they had for Yosef. Al kain halchu l'Shechem, liros es atzman, lechazik ha'achva, ve'asu sham suda gedola biyosam yachad shiftei Yisrael. They went to Shechem to get away from that sinah, away from that hatred, to a place where they could eat and drink and throw a big party and recreate the achava, recreate the relationship and the love and the unity in their family, because they knew that that was critically important for the future of their people, and they felt that they couldn't achieve that in their father's home when Yosef is around. So they go to a distance, they go off to Shechem in order to recreate that unity through eating and drinking, through throwing a party, through coming together in a communal meal. K'moshe Amru Chazal, Gedola Legima Shemekareves Serechokim, Ubazet Tishra B'nei Machdus Gemura. Throwing this big party was a way of bringing them together and creating an absolute unity amongst the brothers. It's a very interesting perspective that Rosh Schwab is sharing over here. I think it goes to the heart of the complexity of understanding the story of Mechiras Yosef, understanding the story of the Parsha, understanding the character of the brothers. On the one hand, there's something very nefarious about the brothers and their scheming and their selling of Yosef and their hatred of Yosef and their inability to get along, their inability to create unity within their own home. At the same time, these are Shiftei Ka. These are the progenitors of the Jewish people. These are important figures of Jewish history who have to be understood and have to be respected. I think what Rosh Schwab is pointing to is that even in the midst of perhaps the negative picture that we see of them in our Parsha, there are glimmers of goodness amongst them. Yes, they couldn't they couldn't bring themselves to create unity with Yosef in their house. That's a terrible thing. That is definitely a shameful piece of their character exhibited in the Parsha. But there's also a positive piece to them, that they wanted to create unity. They wanted to create a special feeling amongst the brothers, and therefore they go to great distance, to great length, all the way to Shechem, to create a party, to create a facility to be able to recreate that unified feeling. And while we may criticize that and say, hey, well, why couldn't they do it in their father's home? Why couldn't they get along with Yosef and do it together with him? We could criticize that, but in the end of the day, what Rosh Schwab is pointing to through this medrash, this Avos de Brit Nasan, is that underneath all of our criticism, we do have to see the good as well. And I think the reason why that's important, again, is that we should leave this parsha not with a monolithic picture of the brothers, not with a monolithic picture of the story, but with a complicated picture, a picture that doesn't necessarily add up, a picture that doesn't necessarily neatly fit into one package, but a picture of complex individuals, because that's what the tribes are. And that's what each of us is. We're all complicated individuals with different facets to ourselves. None of us are perfect. These tribes were not perfect. Their treatment of Yosef was not perfect. But they were never completely evil or completely good. They're always a mixture of both. Something that we can strive to look at and realize that each of us is imperfect like the Shiftei Ka, but each of us can find the good within ourselves to try to do a little bit good, to try to perfect ourselves, to try to correct the mistakes of our past that we see in others and not repeat those for the rest of Jewish history. Shabbat Shalom.